Today's discussion will be about keeping sex offender registry laws. Introducing to my audience, I have Renee, Justin, and Julie from California. Are you aware of who your neighbors are and the type of people they are? Do you trust that they are good people that your children are safe to be around? You may be shocked at who people are behind closed doors. The old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover, applies to not only good things but also bad qualities that may pose a risk to your safety, and you have the right to know. I vote that the U.S. keeps the sex offender registry. Based on my views, beliefs, and statistical facts, many countries do not have the requirement to register, and in the U.S., you are required to register if you are convicted of rape, child molestation, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, exploitation of children, and the kidnapping of those under age 18. Once you are registered, it's considered public record, and you can be searched based on geographical location, and this will include the name, address, age, and the list of crimes that the individual has committed and been convicted of. The idea has been tossed around to eliminate the registration based on the idea that it creates a poor image for the offender and it will make it difficult for them to move on with their lives after conviction. But what about the victims and their ability to move on with their life? The first reason I think the U.S. should keep current sex offender registries is because the number of individuals on this list continues to rise. According to safehome.org, currently 795,066 people are on this registry as of August 2024. That is 8,000 more individuals than that of 2023. Even though the numbers fluctuate based on people being added and removed from this list, average registry of 750,000 people are on the list, and this continues to rise. Another huge reason I believe that sex offender registries should be kept and would deem to be beneficial is because it increased awareness for the public. You deserve to know who you coexist with and work with and who your children are around. By having this list, it can prevent children from potentially being harmed in the future. In the article published by criminal defense lawyer written by Rebecca Pirius, attorney, registry is both state and federally required, and this was created in the 1990s and 2000s after high-profile child abductions, murders, and sexual assaults. SORNA was also created, which stands for Sexual Offender Registration Notification Act. This determines who is a sex offender, how long they must register for, what info is included in the registration, and the penalties for failure to register. According to Slate, an online news reporting publisher in 2022, 70% of offenses are also committed by children. They are held to the same standard and consequences as adults and are mandatory registration requirements. SORNA also determines the severity of the offense and takes into consideration the criminal record of the offender to determine how long the registration lasts. There are 3 tiers. Tier 1 requires 10-year registration, Tier 2, 25 years, Tier 3 is a lifetime, and it also requires regular check-ins with law enforcement to obtain updated photos and information. Let's see. The final reason that I have for the U.S. to consider keeping the sex offender registry is that it not only protects children, but also vulnerable populations. It protects homeless shelters and domestic abuse shelters. I interviewed Alicia Marks on February 9th, 2025, and she is with the organization of CODA, Council of Domestic Abuse. She states that they check each individual for potential offenses, and if they are on this list, it is an automatic disqualification. They state that the offenders can be dangerous and often recommit. At least we can continue to give folks some level of protection. Vulnerable populations may not be able to protect themselves. I myself am a victim of domestic violence, and I would have liked this same protection. After going over many reasons, my beliefs still may not align with others, but I ask that you take into consideration that these individuals are held accountable and the registry protects the vulnerable populations. So after learning about the dangers of convicted sex offenders, wouldn't you want to know who your neighbors are too? Q&A.
Why are they considering taking it away?
Because they state that it is detrimental to the individual's image and that it will make it hard for them to move on with their lives. But I believe that the victim's life and thereafter is not being taken into consideration.
But isn't that the whole point of it, like, following them? Because it's the same thing for the victim. I mean, it needs to be, they made a life-changing decision, so why is it not viewed that way?
I think that they're trying to enforce equality. You want to keep into consideration the victim's quality of life in the future, but there are people that also believe that the offender deserves that same right, even though that's questionable.
So right now, is there just like one website people register on, or is there like different kinds, different states? Like,
So
is there one where we could find everyone, or does it depend?
So there's a national registry that gets information from all 50 states, because all 50 states have requirements for registration currently. But there's also websites that are specific to your geographical area that you can perform a Google search for your area, and it will bring up specific websites. I know myself, when I used to rent, I performed a search on my area within my neighborhood, and turns out that my neighbor was a sex offender. He was attached to us in a duplex, and I didn't know that. And I noticed that he was on the same street, and then before you know it, his address is very similar to mine, and then I determined that he was actually my neighbor. So, glad that I didn't have children.
Oh my God.
Any other questions?
Who's considering it? Like, when did this become in consideration?
Different groups throughout the United States that are focusing and honing in on equality for all populations.
Okay. I'm trying to keep my questions and my comments PG.
Anything else?
Scary.
No, I don't think so.
All right, this concludes my presentation. Here is my audience again: Renee, Justin, and Julie. Thank you.